Mhm. Hi, Alex. I don't know if you're still here. I just had to faff about some lighting because it was pretty poor beforehand. I don't know if you're here or not. Let me know. That'd be great. I just thought it's one of those. I'm just going to go random. Let's just do it, um, and we'll see how we go. I'm just going to show a few bits and bobs. How are you? It's good to see you. I was thinking about the time. It must be like near 9 o'clock over there or something. I'm not sure where you are. If it's probably further back. It's probably about 8 o'clock. But anyway, yeah, I'm just going to show a few bits and bobs of stuff that I've been listening to and found, and just felt like doing something, This is a Hungarian Jazz album, 8 a.m. Okay, so you're probably going to be off to work soon. Richard Kruzer, and it's also got Namysłowski, a famous Polish alto sax player. Good album. It's not. When you first hear this, I think you probably think it's sort of easy listening, but it's not. It's got a real kind of unique feel to this album. It does sell for a fair bit. Well, I say a fair bit, maybe 40, 50 pounds, 60 pounds. It's quite an unusual record because it sounds initially like it's all very, sort of mainstream, and but it's far from it. There's got these unusual things going on in the background, unusual sort of textures, a lovely feel to the album. You can see the back there. I'm not sure how well that's showing up with this really naff laptop camera. I don't know if you've come across this guy before. You've probably come across this guy before. Yeah, interesting album, and I recommend if you're into, well, I know you are, but you are, Alex, but if you're into any kind of obscure jazz, this is quite an interesting record. As I say, it may be a little bit too middle of the road, but it's not all. This has got strange quality to it. I recommend checking it out, though, if you ever see it. Unusual record. Okay, now I'm just going to pick a few bits and bobs. Here is Black Dance, of course. I've had this since about 1989. It's worth checking out. I mean, I don't think you'll necessarily like it, but I think there may be something about it that catches your ear. It's not as way out as a lot of, I say way out, you know what I mean. As I don't think any music's particularly way out, really. Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, Black Dance. I just thought I'd pull this off the shelf. I never really kind of clicked with Voices of Sin for some reason. I liked Ways of Changes for best track on here for me. And also I think it's because as a first album as well, I believe, yeah, it's his first synthesizer was Earlictus. Anyway, yeah, this is 1974, of course not. Yeah, it's interesting because this is obviously when he's first starting out, and the ambient synthesizer, the analog synthesizers of that time for used in an ambient way were huge, great monsters. You had to keep plugging cables in all over the place. I know when I worked at a recording studio, some of the synthesizers were just out of this world. They were amazing things. I used to love playing with those. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, but for me, I think this is kind of where, in a way, he became a little bit ordinary later on in his career. I think everything started to sound a bit samey. When you hear synthesizer music, it can be a little bit predictable, especially with people who have released lots and lots of it. It follows the same sort of patterns, whereas this, I think, still has a kind of a freshness and a kind of and I suppose he was learning. It sounds almost like he'd learned his instrument fairly recently himself, and he's like finding his way. And as a result, the kind of musical explorations and the things that came out of it were perhaps a little bit more engaging to my ear. I don't know what anyone else thinks about that, but contentious, I know. Anyway, yeah, just pull that out. We've seen all these before. The lighting's getting bad again. Anyway, what else can I do? Oh, this is a fantastic little find yesterday. Well, if you're into CDs. Sun Ra Orchestra. Yeah, I think you're right. It's just later he starts becoming a bit kind of samey, especially like in the 90s and onwards. Sun Ra Orchestra, under the direction of Marshall Allen, Babylon Live. This is recorded in Turkey in 2014. You can see the track listing there. Astro Black, RA2, Saturn, Discipline, Stardust, Carefree 2, Dancing Shadows, Satellites Are Spinning. I mean, that is just a nice little find. It's not something you see every day. It's not obviously the classic era, but yeah, you can't go wrong. You've got the Sun Ra Orchestra, you're not going to go wrong. A nice little find. And at the same time, I found this. This is Infinite Spirit Music. Now, the original album of this is worth a lot of money. There's someone trying to sell it for about £3,000 on Discogs right now, which is ridiculous. But again, this is on Jazzman. Now, this label releasing some superb stuff, really obscure stuff, but they're doing it well. You know, they're releasing really good albums, not just obscure for the sake of obscure, and just because they're valuable records. These are very, very good albums. And this kind of reminds me, it's very similar to this one. Another hugely valuable, rare record, Azania the One. Both of these have a spiritual bent. This one has got kind of some female vocals on both of these, a little bit here and there, but used in the more kind of the African way, where you, a bit like the Fela Kuti thing, where you just, they might repeat a few things for a bit and then they just disappear again, let the instruments play and the groove just keep going. Wonderful, wonderful, brilliant stuff. Very, very good, high quality recordings. Definitely worth checking those out. Anything on this label, I think, is worth checking out. Yeah, I mean, it's great. And I really, if you don't know that, recommend that first track. It's let down by one track on here for me, the fifth track, Guiding Light, which is a very kind of almost generic run through of a jazz kind of, it's almost like a jazz standard sound to it. But the rest of it, I mean, it's just sublime. The last piece, I Will Surely Come Again, the track Praise, and the first one, The One, I mean, are just fantastic. You hear the bass on those, it's just beautiful. And the repetition of that bass, the interplay of instrumentalists on those albums, they're really, really good. I found this. Now, obviously, people have had this for ages. They've had the vinyl copies, you know, and they look fantastic, the vinyl copies. But they're very expensive. And I just happened to find this in a charity shop yesterday with those other bits. I have not actually heard this all the way through. I've heard bits of it. I've listened to some of it online and stuff, and people have always been waxing lyrical about how great this album is. I think nowadays a lot of things are kind of exaggerated. The importance of things are exaggerated. But this definitely has something about it. And it maybe has set a new standard or a new bar, or maybe it's just an old bar kind of being rehashed. You know, it's like when Coltrane first kind of started venturing out and free jazz started appearing and modal methods of jazz playing came in, as opposed to the kind of a more regular kind of early jazz sort of themes and styles. This perhaps is probably just a return to that, you know, in a way. But it's obviously got something new for now, and maybe it's just resonating with people now. A lot of the UK jazz thing is very big at the moment, and there's a definite movement and a definite kind of strength to it. Hello, how are you, Jay? It's really good to see you. Yeah, a great record, I'm sure. As I say, I've heard it all the way through, but what I've heard is absolutely drive safely. Keep drive safely there. Mind you, I don't think my videos are going to be too distracting for you. I don't think have I got anything here that I could blow your mind with? Maybe. Yeah, I don't think I've pulled anything too kind of major. I don't know. We'll see. Hello, how you doing, Paul? Yeah, it'd be interesting to have this on vinyl, but it's one of those. I'm not really bothered. I want to see what it sounds like. If I fall in love with it, then maybe I'll buy a vinyl copy of it. I'm not sure. I'm not obsessed with having everything on vinyl because, frankly, I mean, it just gets too expensive. You just can't keep it up, you know. Yeah. Now I thought that when I actually heard that EP, I thought that was much better. You know, from what I heard, I just loved it. The same thing, the concentration of it, Alex. Exactly, the focused thing. Yeah. And I think this is part of the problem nowadays. It's the same ever since CDs first came in and people could record longer albums. Yeah, harmony of difference, that's for one. People can record longer albums, so the quality tended to slip over the album. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if I get halfway through this and think, it's just becoming very repetitive. That's just the nature of the modern music world, I think. People just kind of go, let's use all the time we can and let's just fill it up. And it doesn't necessarily work. And maybe there's an element of, you know, kind of what's the word, like a kind of arrogance about it. We can do this. Look, we're being paid to do this. Fantastic. Let's just do whatever we want and kind of, you know, well, you can have fun, but try to rein it in a little. Because, you know, ultimately, I always think if you want to release something, you've got to release it well and you've got to do the very best you can possibly do. Hi, Rob. How are you? You have the little shades thing. That's good. Let's just go a little bit slightly off with Van de Graaff Generator, Pawn Hearts, one of the best inner gatefolds of all time. Absolutely classic. Again, this album I've had since about 1990, maybe 89, 90. But absolutely fantastic album. I think for me, Man Erg is perhaps the piece. Plague of Lighthouse Keepers has some incredible moments, of course. Lemmings for me is like a build-up. This is not the original. A friend of mine has the original with a poster. It's a lovely thing. Very hard to find that. If I ever find the original, I'll get one of a poster. H to He, Who Am the Only One is another great album. And it's not H to H-E. People always say it's H to He, Who Am the Only One. It's like H stands for Hamill, Peter Hamill, addressing God. He who am the only one. That's why the gatefold has the hands and the solar system and everything being created. You know, a lot of people kind of miss that. It doesn't take too much to work it out, really. But for years, I called it H2HE, and one day it suddenly clicked. Like, huh? That's what it is, of course. It makes perfect sense with all the lyrics on it and everything. But anyway, yeah. For me, Man Erg, the way they play that stereo panning, that fantastic riff with the stereo panning. That's what makes it for me. Always made it. Caught my ear instantly, and I've never failed to love it since. Great, great stuff. I don't know how many of you will have heard this, probably most of you. But wonderful progressive music. I think some people might struggle with Peter Hamill's voice. He's a little bit high register, perhaps. And, he says a lot. He's a very wordy kind of singer. There's a lot of things he's trying to say and get across. He's more like a poet, really, than a singer. But of course, he's dealing with great big themes and all sorts of great, amazing kind of concepts, which he's trying to get across at the same time in a musically expressive way, which I think sometimes he hits absolutely perfectly. Other times it can be like, well, get to the point, mate, and then suddenly another riff kicks in and you're there again. And watching some of the footage of them live from this period is fascinating to see. And the power they get out of just the 3 or 4 of them playing, absolutely immense. And to see them playing those songs live, the way they constructed those songs is quite miraculous in a way. They're so long and so kind of in-depth. But to see what they can do in just that tiny amount of instrumentation, great stuff. A bit like the drums at the time. I always thought, you see the drummers at that time, the drum kits are tiny, and yet the sound they can get out of those is a bit like Jackie Liebzeit on the cover of Tego Mago, on the UK cover. And you just see that tiny little kit, and yet the power and the sound he gets out of it. Amazing. I'm in work testing valves for a nuclear power station. Everything is under control. That's good, thanks. That's really good to know, Rob. I mean, you know, it doesn't really bother the people in America, but yeah, it would bother me if something went wrong. All right, let's, anyway, you should be getting on with your work. Hold on, you're testing valves for a nuclear power station. You should be concentrating on your job. All right, let's have a look here. I'm going to just show this. Now, these are quite random records today. I've got another couple of obscure ones here. The Lollipop Shop. This is not an original. It's hard, almost impossible to get an original over here. Obviously, I could order one from abroad. I've had this for quite a number of years now, 15, 20 years. This is the one with a couple of extra tracks on it, a single. But there's just something about this album. I think they do follow the kind of pattern of fast and then slow, fast, slow, fast, slow tracks. But, I mean, it's been said many times. Greg Cole, the vocalist on this, is probably one of the top 5 sort of garage rock vocalists. Obviously, he went into more kind of a, like say, a punk, hardcore element, or sort of sound later on in his career. He never lost, I should say, that kind of rock power in his voice. But he has an emotive quality, which I suppose a lot of the people at the time were trying to sound a bit like Mick Jagger, and you know, they're not necessarily kind of hitting a mark of individuality and stuff, and they're kind of running through and going through the motions. But I think this guy really was in a class of his own. And if you haven't heard this album, I really recommend you listen to it. Even just 2 or 3 tracks, you get exactly what I mean. And the songs themselves are just probably some of the best garage rock of the 60s. There's no doubt about it, really. Again, they have that kind of emotive quality, which is something extra. They're not just running through, hello, how are you, Michael? They're not just going through the motions, you know, the usual you know. There's a little bit of that, if you like, but there's more, much more. A bit like the Blues Magoos, there's more to that music. There's much more. I think partly because they were allowed the kind of freedom to write their own material, which wasn't the case for a lot of bands, and they had to do a lot of cover versions, whereas this is all their own material. And as a result, it's stronger. But obviously they had better musicians and people in there who actually had that something extra anyway. Anyway, I know I'm kind of running on, but I'm aware that Jay's in his van as well. I'm kind of keeping an eye. Someone's nuclear power, someone's in their van. Okay. Let's go a little bit. I'm going all around the houses. I'm going to go back to a little bit of that obscure acid folk stuff. But first of all, look. Oh, this picture is appalling on here, isn't it? Joy Division, of course. This is, let me see if I can tilt this light. That helps. Unknown Pleasures. I'm just showing it because it is the original. I just wanted to show the, if I can turn this around, I don't know if it's going to show up. I don't think it's going to show up. I can see it, but you probably can't. It's the, yeah, it's the dark red. And you can tell here as well, the inner is surrounded the corners. The reason why I'm just showing it is because it's, you know, everyone knows it's a great, great album. But I know they had real issues with the producer, and they argued with him. They didn't want him to do the production like that. I wanted the guitars to sound like they did live, and he just told them to F off. That was it. He didn't. That was it. 2 words, go away. You know, that's it. I mean, I'm not listening to you. And okay, they probably felt aggrieved at the time, like what is going on? You know, it's not fair, etc., etc. But they came at that album because of that, because of the production, is, you know, in a class of its own. If you want to hear them as they actually sounded, as I'd say, as they sounded live, if you like, this is it. Oh, you got to see them live. Ooh. Very nice, very nice. And the Buzzcocks. Can't go wrong there. That is a great twofer. In a way, kind of a strange mix, but they were very kind of punk, weren't they, to begin with? But this is a way to hear them. This particular disc, as well as the best quality one, the Band Douche. This is a Paris gig from the 18th of December. But this is the one to get. There's another 2 or 3 of these, which the quality is not so good. But this is how to hear them. I mean, wow, this is, you hear how great they were live. I mean, they were a phenomenal band, and the guitars just ripping through the speakers. To have actually seen them like this would have been phenomenal. I don't think this is a blue vinyl, no. Just a regular black one. But anyway, yeah, that was on the side. I just happened to pull it. I was doing my random, I just pulled a few records, and that came out in my hand, so I just thought I'd mention what everybody already knows anyway. Okay, we're going a bit left field again. Phillips Glasses, the photographer. Now, I tried listening to this the other day, and I do actually quite like a lot of Phillips Glasses music. This has a nice insert showing the kind of stage setup and the vocalists, and there's a lot of detailed information. But to me, it was too high pitched. The vocals were too high, and throughout the entire piece, it was just too high. And I was like, oh my goodness, I can't take any more. You know, I needed some depth. There was no depth to it in the sense of bass or kind of low notes. It was very, very high, and I just found it was afterwards almost not piercing, but almost, you know, and it became hard to listen to. Now, some of his pieces are very good, but they tend to be a bit of a lower register, lower key. This was too much for me, far too much. I don't know if anyone else knows this album or would concur, but yeah, I found it a very difficult listen. And of course, most of our stuff, yeah, well, yeah, you might actually, I mean, it has the same kind of things that he always does. And I think that's the thing, you know, you hear his kind of music and you know what to expect and you know what's coming next. Some is just better than others. And for me, this is not as good as some of his others, especially like music in 12 parts, for example. Much better than this, much better. This one just doesn't quite cut it, really. Stacks of records here. Okay. Oh, this is another one. This is I may have shown this. I know I've shown it on Instagram ages ago. And Chris Cole, John Coltrane, 68, told me this is the red flowers of Tai Chai, or Tai Chai, blossoms everywhere. This was one of David Bowie's favourite records in his one of his lists. I think he did a list in a magazine, and this was in there in the top 20 or so of his records. And I can see why. This is a marvellous, marvellous little 10-inch. You know, this is, listen to the titles here. You've got A Long, Long Life to Chairman Mao, The Red Flower of Tai Chai Blossoms Everywhere, Delivering Public Grain to the State, Spring Comes to Yaiho River, Conquering the Typhoon, The Flower of Tai Chai Blossoms at the Foot of Kunlun, and you've also got Galloping Across the Vast Grasslands. So you get a sense this is China, but this is an industrial China. But this is a China harking back to the past. But it's such a beautiful record. I don't go for I say a lot of world music. A lot of it, there's so much of it around. It's difficult to know what to listen to. I've learned a lot from Chris. He's got some fantastic records, and I know what I like when I hear it. Some of the desert nomad stuff, for example, from Ethiopia, that kind of thing, can be really powerful to my ears. This is beautiful, and if you want to follow what David Bowie liked, look this up. The Red Flower of Tai Chi. That's TACHI. Beautiful, beautiful 10-inch. I think I may have shown this before, but I'm just, let's say, randomly pulling. It's difficult to know. But I recommend seeking this out. I think, Alex, you'd probably really love this. It's a lovely, lovely thing. Beautiful. Okay. Now, I don't know if I don't know if Jay is still around. Here is Uriah Heep's Very Heavy, Very Humble. This, I think, was in my second ever video, just on the show. This is the original on Vertigo. This, for me, it's just worth it just for the opening track, Gypsy, which is very famous and became like one of our staples, one of our standards in the live shows. And also you've got Dream there, Come Away Melinda is on here, which is kind of a lighter piece. Wake Up, Set Your Sights. Very, very, I mean, this is a Vertigo production, and as a result, the sound is just awesome. Yeah, brilliant, fantastic. 99p, can't go wrong. The original Vertigo Swell, that's amazing. That's my kind of territory, as many of you know. Anyway, this, I just think it's a fantastic record. It's not a perfect record, and not at all, but it is a very, very good record. I think just for the first track, and again, it's a mixture. It's got the perfect combination. The organ, the guitars, the bass, the drums, and the singer are all perfectly matched. There's a great, great sound to it. And I can see why they became popular. Funnily enough, they were never really that big in this country. Never really that big. You know, they were always kind of like low down in the sets of heavy metal gigs and stuff like that, and festivals. And they never quite made it. I think they were far bigger in Germany and in Europe. I don't really know why that is. I don't know. But very strong album, very strong. I think maybe later on they became a little bit kind of weaker, and that maybe diluted them in people's minds. I don't know. Right. Just a couple more, and 2 or 3 more. Now, again, this is one I've had since 1988 or something. Tea and Symphony. This is the 80s bootleg. This is an asylum for the musically insane. Now, I knew as soon as I saw this on the Harvest label, because it was originally on Harvest, but I had to have it. I was trying to collect everything on Harvest. And I've still, to this day, oh, no, I think I saw one once. I saw one original once. A very hard record to find. But a very good album. Slightly spooky, slightly kind of like a odd circus feel to it. You can tell really from the guys and the families there, they're not your average Joes. And some of it is just a bit extreme to a lot of people's ears. I don't think they could handle it. People say things like Comus. That album is a really intense and spooky album. I don't think so at all. I just want whatever. Yeah. But this has a kind of madness to it. I mean, it does say an asylum for the musically insane. And I think if you have any kind of outsider kind of the desire in your listening out, any kind of connection with the outsider, character and quality of musicianship and creativity, this will be right up your street. It's let down, as I say so often, by one song, the Come On, because they had a couple of members of Baker Lou, who were also on the Harvest label, join them, and it just turned it into a horrible kind of, they added a bass and drums, and it just turned it into this kind of really, I've said it before, pedestrian number of just a sort of blues run through. It just ruins the album. Although it's the end of side one, so you can quickly get up and turn it over. But the rest of it is kind of freaky. I mean, freaky is the word for this. It is a freak out, it's acoustic mostly. It's odd, it's bizarre, and yet I think it's a great, great record. A great album. Definitely worth having a look for. The original's got a gatefold, nice double picture all the way around. And this is inside with another picture of the band on the other. Excellent album and well worth checking out. Freaky. All right, if you are, yeah, you might like it, Alex. You might think, what the heck is this guy talking about? Because it's a bit too kind of English, maybe English folk element, but not traditional folk. It definitely has a complete weirdness to it. Some people hate it, absolutely hate it. Humble Pie. This is their first. Not easy to find over here, actually. But I think it's just worth it, just for the. There's two tracks on here. Earth and Water Song and Sucking on the Sweet Vine. Both are kind of gentle acoustic numbers, but the quality of those two songs completely, it sort of demolishes the quality of a lot of other music. They are just wonderful pieces, and they're not written by. I think one is written by the bass player, and one is written by Peter Frampton. Yeah, Greg Ridley, and they all share different vocals on this. Steve Marriott kind of takes a back seat on those two songs, and wow, they are good. They are very, very good songs. Highly recommended. They've got a kind of a laid back. It's not gentle. It's not. How do you describe it? God, it's really hard to describe. And normally, I don't get lost for words, but it's very difficult to describe those. There's something about the acoustic quality of the songs, the nature of the way they play those notes, and the production. Again, I think there's something about the production, just elevates it. And as soon as you hear it, it kind of engages the ear. And the melody, I think the melody of both of those songs, that's what it is. It's the melody. Wonderful. Of course, the rest of the tracks on here are more heavy, rocky sort of stuff, as you'd expect. That's right. I think people forget that Steve Marriott was a good guitar player. You never hear about him being a guitarist, ever. You hear that he was in the Small Faces and he was, in Humble Pie, etc., etc. But you don't hear about his great guitar work. He's a very good guitarist. You hear about him being a great vocalist, but his guitar playing gets overlooked. All right, I'll just do a couple more. Because these videos get so long that no one cares. No one wants to know. Where should we go next? Oh, I'll go with it. Keynsham, the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band. Well, at this point, they were just the Bonzo Dog Band. Who did that the other day? That's, oh my goodness, why is his name slipping from my memory? Oh, fantastic guy. I never miss his videos. Anyway, did a whole video on these the other day. For me, this is their best album. It's far more kind of concentrated. It still has absolute silliness. And I don't think comedy and music really works generally. But and here you've actually got some very, very good songs. Again, I think it's for you care. This is very, very good record. I think it's as I say, it's the best. Now they did a kind of selection, a big sample of our stuff called Cornology, which brought all sorts of pieces and albums together and all sorts. I personally think they should have called it Corny Pastiche. It would have been a much better, a much wittier title. But anyway, that's just me, and I thought that about 35 years ago, and I stand by it. Yeah, it's got some great stuff on here. It's silly, it's kind of irreverent at times, but it's also it's one of those English things. Now, if you're English, you'll get it. If you're American, you might go, I don't get this at all. If you like Monty Python, of course, which Americans seem to do, perhaps more than the English, because maybe it kind of makes they think that all English are these weird eccentrics. Now, there is a kind of thread of that within the English nature and culture. That's true. But I think they kind of actually get more into it than we do. And this kind of stuff, if you're in the know, you're in the know. You either love it or you hate it. Or it's just like, oh, really? Did they really just say that bad joke? Did they really just do that? Mr. Slater's Parrot is a pick on here. For, and sport. The odd boy who didn't like sport. Great stuff. That resonates with many, many people who were at school who were just not into that kind of thing. And were kind of made to feel bad because of it. Noises for the leg. Just craziness. Joke Shop Man is a good one. Look at me, I'm wonderful. It's Vivian Stanshall just kind of muttering and mumbling into a mirror, really, narcissistically. But yeah, wow, I just pulled it off. And going from the ridiculous to the sublime. Now, this is Bar Phillips. I call him Bar Phillips. Barry, who knows. Mountainscapes. I think this is a wonderful thing. It's on ECM, 1978. Each piece, Mountainscape 1 to 8. Mountainscape 1 is probably, for me, the pick. It just, the bass on that, the bass line is just fantastic. He plays the bass. John Sermon plays baritone and soprano saxophone, bass clarinet and synthesizer. And then you've got synthesizers, drums, and more synthesizers. John Abercrombie is on guitar, but only on the 8th part, Mountainscape 8. I defy anyone who listens to the first Mountainscape 1 to not like it. I mean, it is... Just listen to Mountainscape 1 and you'll get exactly what I mean. The feel of this, the sound of it, the wonderful, great album. I think it just conjures up an atmosphere instantly. And I recommend checking a lot of this stuff out, but if there's just one piece to check out, just listen to Mountainscape number 1 by Bar Phillips. Lovely stuff. It's not a very long piece. It's nearly 6 minutes. Great stuff. Yeah, I rarely see them as well, Alex, in all honesty. These albums are very hard to come by. But when I saw this, I'm like, right, thank you very much. And from the little I've heard, I haven't heard a lot of his stuff. I've heard some of it. This seems to be one of his best. And I'm very glad I found it. Right, now I'm going to do something slightly off. The other day, in one of my videos, I showed a couple of old 30s musical records, or one anyway, I believe. This is the lyrics on several occasions. It's written by Ira Gershwin, who's famously the brother of George Gershwin, of course, who died at 37. Ira actually lived till he was 100. But this is such a witty book, and I don't think lyrics have been written as well. All right. The 30s had their own style, they had their own feel, they had their own kind of, when you hear a 30s song, there's a lot of jazz influence, there's all sorts of wonderful music at that time. And then the melodies and the rhythms, you can tell straight away it's a 30s song. I don't particularly like 40s and 50s music, early 40s maybe. 50s musicals and stuff I don't really care for at all. But the 30s was the pinnacle, really. And they were great. And this is a witty, blow by blow, going through a lot, each piece, each song, how he wrote it, where he wrote it, what he did, and he was writing it, which musicals and which theatre plays and stuff they were involved in. Great book. May not be the sort of music that you automatically think, oh, I'm going to check that out. But I recommend it if you want a witty, interesting read. Okay, I'll just, I've only got one or two left here. Oh, I'm just doing this. This is not for anyone in particular, but it's for one person. Anyway, I'll know who they are. I picked up a copy of Rolling Stones, #2. Now, some people are going to go, what? I'm not a big Rolling Stones fan. I like Gimme Shelter sort of period. I like some of those songs are great, of course, Under My Thumb and things like that, from 65 to 72-ish, 73. But again, I don't care for albums like, oh dear, that's it, I've actually got it, the double album, everyone rants and raves about. I don't really care. It just sounds just like boring, plodding kind of rock music to me, just whatever. But I saw this, I bought it because it was a very, very first press on Decca. It's a 1A, which is nigh on impossible to find. And I was really, really glad I found it. Yeah, I don't think anyone really wants a lot of his solo stuff. But yeah, I'm really glad I found this. I played it, and it does nothing for me. I mean, virtually nothing. There's one or two songs which are kind of catchy, but everyone rants and raves. I know Norman Maslov did a thing recently on the Beatles versus the Stones. It's just interesting you got 3 or 4 Beatles albums before you even got a Stones one, and Stones one mainly covers. But yeah, not my favourite record in the world. Glad to have it. And it'd probably be something I'd pull off every now and then just to play 1 or 2 songs off, but not the greatest album in the world by any means. And yet people still pay a lot of it for it because it's a Rolling Stone. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, yeah, that was a great find. In fact, I found it at the same time, with #1. However, this is not the one with the long version of Tell Me, which is I've been looking for years. Yeah, I say I'm looking for it. Every time I come across one, I just double check just in case. Never seen that one. Or the short version of Tell Me, I believe. Yeah. This is like a second one, the first of the next presses, and they came out with that. It's such a shame. Never find the other one. But like I say, would I play it? Maybe not. I do like I'm a King Bee, and there's a couple of pieces on there I like, but. Anyway, that was it. I only pulled those, and this is getting on. It's like 44 minutes coming up to. These things I could do all day, but I think it'd probably be boring for everyone else. Anyway, I'll say goodbye there. Those of you who are starting your day, have a great day. Those of you who are ending your day, glad you had a great day. These were actually. I got 3 albums, The Miracles, this and the other one for £2 altogether. £2. Yeah. So that was a bit of a bargain. Yeah, thank you, Alex. Have a great day. Enjoy yourselves. And I'm kind of loath to say goodbye right now, but I'm going to have to, I think, for your sake. And for anyone else who dares or cares to drop in once this has actually been uploaded. All right, well, you look after yourselves, and I'll see you all soon. Cheers. That was actually a charity shop. Guy just said, oh, look, I've got some records here. And I said, how much? And he said, £2 a lot. I said, are you sure? He said, yeah. So anyway, there you go. I will see you all soon. And have a fantastic afternoon, or whatever else you do. See you later.